of August 7, 2024, 10 a.m. to order. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item of business would be the approval of the minutes from the July 9th and July 18th election board meetings. I know they've been circulated previously with opportunities for comments, so I'll entertain a motion for the July 9th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor of approving the July 9th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Matter carries unanimously, and now I will entertain a motion for the July 18, 2024 minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor of approving the July 18, 2024 election board minutes, say aye.
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 The matter carries unanimously as well. Next order of business, third satellite vote center change update.
Yes. So, as you know, we were looking to get a third satellite site for early voting. We did initially reach out to Mishawaka Penn Harris Library to look to see if that was an opportunity. After doing our due diligence there, we decided that per the construction that was going on over there and some parking issues and some other things that we discovered as we went over there, that would not be a good site for us to have that third satellite site for. However, we did reach out to Center Township Library. They have stepped up to the plate and have given us the opportunity to use them as the third satellite site for early voting. So they went to their board, talked through it. Everything is good. We are good to go to use Center Township Library as the third satellite site for early voting. It will be the last 2 weeks of early voting. So it will be the week of October 21st and the week of October 28th, including the weekends, and also that Monday, November 4th, that we will be using them for.
And the hours will be exactly the same
The
as
hours,
other
the
votes.
hours will be exactly the same as we have for both Mishawaka and County City Building.
It also gives people on the south side. It also gives people on the south side better access. So I think it'll also help with some of the overflow here at the County City Building. I just wanted to add that.
Great.
Chris, what actually is the address for the Center Township Library? Do you have that offhand, or at least give me the general location?
It's on Kern Road there, off Miami and Kern, on the corner there.
Near Miami and Kern?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah. And historically, we've seen Center Township be in the top 3, top 5 volume-wise from election perspective. That's why we reached out to them too, just so we know from a location perspective, that has a lot of folks that go there and use that location. So we thought that would be the best next option for us to go.
Okay. I don't think any other action needs to be taken on that.
Do we need to have a resolution on that?
Yes.
We need to change it, yes.
Yeah.
Andrew has all the different suggestions of things going on. I know he's working on that.
The second thing I like, are we go with that, everybody?
Go ahead.
Okay. Second thing I want to bring up is Epix Church, who is a election site that we use in the primary, reached out to me, and they are not going to be a site for us to be able to use for the general. A couple different reasons for that. Just kind of a separation of their political views. Their board really met in depth about this. It was a tough decision for them. This was nothing against us at all. It was just when political views sometimes become into a private venue like that, there's some division, and they were fearing that that would cause some issues. So my proposal to you is that we go from 42 to 41 sites. We feel that 41 sites is by far enough for what we need overall. But as of right now, Epix Church will not be a site for the general, and I believe, again, 41 sites for us for the general should be fine.
And what's the location of that?
That location is out in Mishawaka. That was Harrison and Capitol. That was what replaced Hums. We've done a lot of due diligence out in that area to try to find another possibility. That's why Epix Church came into play. And there's really nothing out there right now. Now we can revisit it going into 26 potentially.
What about Just a little bit further east, what about the Penn Fire Station
We-
just south of the
we-
bypass?
we went there as well. We just don't think that's going to be logistically, and everything that has to go with that area is going to be a good fit. And,
Okay.
and the room that we would use is very small, and we just don't think it'll be something well. So I think there's just going to be some time there for that area, potentially maybe some things we can do at Hum School or a couple of schools out there that we can look at improvements, work with the Mishawaka folks that we have a good rapport with going into 25 next year, and then maybe potentially do some different things in 26. But again, I think 41 sites is plenty for what we need. The last thing I want to add is, historically, we've used churches, and they have not been reliable. I think going forward, we need to really look at churches as not being an option for sites going forward. It's exciting and it's good, and yes, they want to have a good forward for community-wise, but it's just always been kind of iffy. And I just think we really need to put a hard line as far as using churches going forward for any sites.
Could you provide more detail about the iffy part?
Yeah, well, the current state, right? So Epic Church, they were excited about it. They went into it. They thought it was going to be a good situation for us. And then politically, it caused a constraint within their community. And we've seen that in past churches that we've used where they were excited about it. We went into it. They wanted to do it. And then it gets into it. And then political views get kind of in mix and in dividing within their church community. And that's always been kind of the comment that we have heard from them is, we want to do it, it's great, it's wonderful, oh, we did it, and now political views start getting some separations within their community. So I just think it's something we need to note and something we need to make sure that just from a church perspective, that's just not an option we should be using going forward.
And is it true, if I remember correctly, that for the primary, they had some requests about candidates not putting their signs
they
up
did,
and
yeah.
not being present
Yep.
on the property?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big influence right there,
It
I
is,
think, yeah.
it is, absolutely.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure to make a note of that we just probably want to give it a hard
Do we
line
need
that,
to revise a resolution about the number of sites we have then?
yes. So we're
You
going to
getting
go
that,
from
Andrew?
42 to 41, and Andrew is aware, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Got
you.
Andrew on my right and on my left,
You're surrounded by Andrew. Okay.
like a Austin Powers movie. Okay, anything else, Chris?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Voter Center Worker Contracts Update.
How about if we do number 5, the Pilot Vote Center Worker Partner Program?
Oh, I checked that off because I
Not
thought we were
done
already
yet, my
there. Go
friends.
ahead, go with that.
Not so fast.
Pilot Vote Center Worker Partner Program is up next.
Yes, I had indicated, I think last time, that we were looking into this in order to make it more accessible for committed partners to sign up to be vote center workers. And this is the contract that I have come up with. I've circulated it via email. I'm sorry I didn't bring more copies, but Andrew has looked at this as well. The language is pretty explicit as to it's like job sharing on election day. And 2 committed people, both of them have to go to the training, but then they are allowed the flexibility of working a half a day at the vote center. To do this pilot program, I'm not sure how many pairs we want to try. Certainly, I'm open to suggestions, but I do think it's important that we get the inspectors of those vote centers where we are going to have the pilot program partners at that vote center. So I think we need to get their buy-in as well. And perhaps people could recommend, party chairs or people, the election board, people that they know that would be good candidates for this partner program. So do we have discussion on that?
Has it been done in other counties that we're aware of, and do we know how many people they use for those, how many pairs they use for those?
It has been done in other counties, but it's been relatively unsuccessful in Indiana with the counties. And the main concern from other clerks is that some people, if they are not committed, It's like, hey, Chuck, I'm going to call you. Would you work half a day? You say, I can only work half a day. And I say, okay, I'll put you down. Then I randomly call somebody else. I randomly call Kim Riskovich. Hey, Kim, can you work half a day? Oh, sure. So they've both separately committed themselves, but they have not committed themselves to each other. So when Kim has a grandchild being born, she's just like, oh, I'm not going to work. So there's Chuck left holding the bag. That is the biggest complaint. And then it causes chaos within the polling location and just a nightmare for the inspectors and the clerks. So this is something that has not been done with selecting committed people.
I think this is a good design. I think it's a good test. It can be just two pairs, or it can be 4 or 6, whatever we want to do. But I think it's a good idea just to kind of test it out and then get some feedback afterwards to see how it worked from the inspector's point of view, but also from the worker's point of view.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think six couples or 6 pairs would probably be about as high as we'd want to go at the
Okay.
outset. If it turns out we have a lot more interest than that, then maybe we can revisit it. But I would say, let's keep it to a small number first, so we can get really personal feedback from them as to how it works.
Okay. So like 3 Democrat pairs and 3 Republican pairs, is that right?
That'd be good.
Sure.
Can I ask Diana what your thoughts are? Would you mind sharing, just as?
I'm just concerned about trying anything new this year. I will say, because I think it's going to be a very busy, big year, and so I hate to see any problems. Should I come to the finals?
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. And I do agree with you. This is really, we should have tried this in the primary, but.
Yeah, so I think maybe down the road, and I've heard before from people that they'd love to work if only they could split the day with their spouse or whatever. However, I don't know how widespread that is, and if it's worth testing it this year, maybe in a smaller election, a municipal election or something like that. But I think this year's going to be pretty big, pretty busy. So I'm also concerned about, I know we're losing a vote center, not so much the losing of maybe a vote center, but I thought by law, by statute, aren't we supposed to have the same vote centers in the general that we had in the primary? I mean, I'm a little concerned about.
This is a private venue, so that.
Well,
I think it's a statutory question. I think we'll ask, Andrew could kind of weigh in for us and let us know.
No, and
on
I
that.
understand, and I know there were problems there, I get
Yeah.
that, but I just thought we had to have the exact same vote centers so that in this primary and the general. That was my understanding. So that's my other question.
I don't know the answer to that.
Ideally,
Yeah,
you do. Go ahead, Andrew, please.
Yeah, sorry. So I missed part of what Diana said at the beginning. Chris, can you reiterate what is going on with the subtraction of the vote center?
Yeah, so Epic Church has decided they are not going to be a site for the general. They're pulling out. Go ahead.
No, I guess this is the first that I'm hearing exactly that they made a final decision not to comply and actually have their place open for the November election. Did they give any rationale behind this?
Yeah, the rationale basically is the fact that their concern is with everything that's gone on already this year, and their community, their church community, having some concerns from a political perspective and a divide that's already occurring within their church community. They just do not want to go forward with being a site for us at this point in time. They caution themselves as far as doing that right now.
Yeah.
And
well,
I've
my
done,
read of the law.
Yeah, and I've done everything that I possibly can to try to convince them or give them anything we can do on our end to try to help that, and it's not going to work.
Well, I mean, that's unfortunately just a matter of opinion, whether it's going to work or not, because my read of the law is the same as Diana's. So, I mean, we are going to have to, I apologize. I don't know why what that sound is. We are going to have to figure out exactly, what the legal ramifications are of this, because my read of law is the same as Diana's, which is you can add to vote centers in the fall, you can't subtract, which is a normal thing, that in the general election, there are more voters, higher expected turnout, et cetera. And it's good to make more places available than there were in the primary. But yeah, Chris, I'll have to talk to you about this. I'll have to talk to you about this,
Yep.
Kim and Tricia and Amy, and we'll have to address this at our next election board meeting to figure out what the ramifications of this are. But I think it's important for the people who are arranging our vote centers for the primary as well as for the general, that these are not like optional things. We can't have a situation where the day before the election, a church goes, you know what, we've changed our mind. We're not going to allow this to happen. I think it's going to be, when we talk about this, I'm going to be asking questions about what was told to Epic Church at the beginning of the year when they agreed to partake in this. Were they told that if they do, this is a full year commitment? It's kind of like working on election day. You don't get to just work, 2 hours and then get 1/5 of a paycheck. Like, if you're going to do this, Epic Church, you are here for the primary, you are here for the general.
Understand?
Yeah.
I do want to add something though, Andrew. I guess the resolution that we adapted was only for the primary. It was not for this entire general, for the whole election.
So you are correct about that. However, what the law on this is not based on the resolution that we passed. The law, I don't have the code book in front of me. There is Indiana code about the adding vote centers versus subtracting vote centers. I don't have the code in front of me right now. I didn't know that this was going to be brought up today. But that is correct. We did pass a vote center resolution for the primary, but it's my understanding of the law that it's actually code that says that you can't reduce the number of vote centers in the general or change the vote center designated places for the general other than to add to them rather than subtract. Kim, do you have a different understanding around this?
I do. I was going to bring up the resolution. Thank you, Tricia. But the other thing is that the law does give a little bit of wiggle room for situations like this where the place is not going to work out. Now, I'm not.
Okay, well, Len, let's talk about it offline. I am very glad that Diana flagged this issue, so we can figure out whether Epic Church has claimed. Oh, God, it says that I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know why the screen says that I'm muted. Teams drives me crazy. This is, this is something that we're going to have to look at what the code exemption is and what Epic Church is claiming to figure out whether what they're claiming actually qualifies. But it's something that, this is why it's good we have election board meetings 3 months before the election. So it's something that we can look at before we come back together.
Right, and we got to keep in mind that they're not taxpayer supported, so they also have that wiggle room too. And it's not unusual for this to happen. And I know in the past that we've had to do resolutions to amend them to, accommodate situations like this. So, yeah, definitely conversation is needed.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
So back to the Diana's comment about the voter center worker partner program. I think it's also very well taken that maybe it's something to delay until after we get through the general election rather than starting something new during this general election. I don't know if that hurts anybody's feelings.
Certainly doesn't hurt my feelings, but,
I think it depends. I've heard specifically from a friend, a fellow attorney who is interested in doing this with his wife, and he has not participated in the past, and one of the reasons he hasn't participated, so he would be a new person, but he would be somebody who is somewhat skilled in terms of how the law works generally. So I think that there may be, if we can just get maybe a couple I think it wouldn't be bad. There's no change in what the actual function is. It's just a scheduling issue. So I don't think it's too burdensome. And if we just get one, and I think I have one who would be a Democratic pair, but I think it'd be worth trying it at least one time around.
I'm okay with that.
So reduce it to one?
Yeah,
One
give it
one
a-
on each?
Depending on,
Because
yeah,
the damage wouldn't be as big, obviously,
Right.
if it fails.
Right.
yeah, I do want to acknowledge Diana's point that we don't want to overburden her responsibility and as party chair, and actually both party chairs to kind of recruit, because it is a challenge. And the more complicated it gets, the more work it is. So I just think we need to be aware of that too as we kind of move forward. But we could do it, an experiment with one, or, you know, if it ends up being other people step forward who maybe haven't participated before, then that's okay too.
Okay.
But. I do, well, I have somebody, I'll talk to you afterwards and mention it.
I think I think the Republicans have a couple that are interested in doing it. And again, the same as who Chuck is referring to. They just have never wanted to do it before because of the long day, but if it's a possibility for a pilot program for job share, so I think that should be pretty easy.
Great. Okay, so moving on to number 6, Vote Center Worker Contracts Update.
All right. I circulated via email the updated contracts that Andrew has given his approval for as well. It just spells out much more clearly what is expected of the vote center workers from the arrival time to staying through the whole day. They have to be all in. It is an all or nothing. And I think it adds clarity to the positions themselves as a vote center worker. So it states very clearly that you must arrive at this time and you may not leave. And I did not put in there about in case of an emergency, but in case of an emergency, if someone needs to call an ambulance, yes, we can deal with that. But all other trips away from the vote center are not allowed, and this specifically indicates that they will not be paid if they are not at the vote center for the duration of the day, from start to the ending of the inspector's approval to leave. So if we can implement that into all of our vote center worker paperwork, that will alleviate all of the confusion that happened this year, I believe.
Yeah, I do have one concern. I think that the expectation is exactly right. We do want to make it very clear that we expect people to be there all day. The thing I'm concerned about is there are some equitable issues, if you know, and lawyers think about what happens if this comes in front of a judge and then what the judge sees. And let me just give you one example, and this kind of goes back to contract law issues. So let's say that okay, the workers all have to be there at 5 a.m. Somebody shows up at 5:15. At 5:15, by that time they've violated the contract, and in fact, we have the right to not pay them. But we say, come on in and work the whole day. And then at the end of the day, we say, oh, by the way, you're not getting paid for this. Even though at 5:15 a.m., when the contract was broken, then we have, that is at the time at which we decided we're not going to pay. So I think that's the kind of an issue where if an employer accepts the work of the employee after a contract has been breached, and the contract may be effectively done at that point because there's been a breach and there's been a determination per the rules that they're not going to get paid, then in fact they do continue to work. What does that mean? Do they need to know that they're going to be working for free for the entire day, or do we just tell them go home? So I just think that there are some nuances that we need to kind of understand and work through. So I'm just a little bit uneasy about that. Plus, we're going to hear about it afterwards anyhow. I just want to make sure that we work through this. Part of the solution might be that, in fact, those whom we have an issue with and the inspectors have decided don't deserve to be paid, that they have at least a chance to come here and kind of explain what the issues are. And I don't know that necessarily needs to be worked into the contract itself, but I do think that we need to keep that open because there's a kind of a gradient, I think, of circumstances that might make us consider one way or the other. That's just my sense of it.
I mean, my perspective on this is just from, working with Amy to develop this contract is I think, Chuck, you have an excellent point, which is from an equitable perspective, if somebody showed up 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, even 45 minutes late or an hour late, and then they stayed 13 hours, do we then get to not pay them? That is a really good question. I think the larger point, though, behind having the contract is just people need to know the expectation.
Yep.
The expectation and like the practicality of this is we can't run elections with people who are gone for an hour in the middle of the day. We can't run elections if people are going to leave at 5:30 or right at 6 before the polling place is closed while there's still people in line. So I don't know if there's a perfect solution here because, I mean, the give and take here is we have an expectation that we are being clear about that someone needs to be there for 12 plus hours in order to be paid. The workers have an upper hand in that we need them. And on election day, these people are not replaceable. I would actually, in a perfect world, it would be fine if we could say, hey, look, inspector, if somebody shows up 10 minutes late, tell them they're not getting paid and they can leave and we'll bring someone else in. Unfortunately, we don't have someone else in most of these situations. So I think, the reason why I liked what Amy had put together is just because it makes our expectations very clear. I think we should always have an open door that says if we're not going to pay somebody, or if for some reason the board decided to reduce someone's pay and they have a problem with it, that they have a right to come to our meeting and say, hey, look, my kid was sick, had to be taken to the hospital, my blood sugar crashed, and I had to go run and, go to a doctor's office or something like that. I think those are all contingencies that we can assess and that we should be able to assess. But we have to have clear, abundantly clear expectations going forward, because the first question we all asked when people complained about not getting paid after leaving early, the question I think we all asked was, what exactly were these people told during training regarding the expectations? And the reason why I like the contract is at the very least, it lays out our expectations very, very clearly.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that at all. And I think that the contract with those clear expectations as it's written is fine. I just think we need to think about what happens afterwards and how we deal with it.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to make sure that we have some understanding that there's going to be a range of issues that we may have to deal with individually. So.
Yep, I think that's right.
So do we need anything, Andrew, approval for this, or are we just good to go? Just a part of the paperwork?
I don't think it would. My advice in this regard is always to have the board, if we're gonna offer this as a contract between workers and the election board, that the board formally approve it.
I don't have it. It's in the email.
Okay.
Oh, it was emailed a few weeks ago.
It was emailed a few weeks ago.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. So you want to wait? or
Yeah,
what
we'll
do
have
you
to
wanna
table,
do?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So can you just resend it?
Yeah, I sure
Yeah,
will.
I missed it or something. I haven't seen the contract, so
Okay.
before I want to vote on it or bring it up for a vote, I want to at least see it. So we can table it for next meeting.
Okay.
Anything
Cool.
else on that issue?
Nothing on that issue.
Any other business?
I have some other things I wanted to run through very quickly, just for your information. We are having, Chris has set up with the Department of Homeland Security a walkthrough of our top 5 vote center locations for a safety review for them, just to have another set of eyes. So that will be happening on August 12, and Chris and I will be doing that along with the people from Homeland Security. So I'm very happy about that. I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time. I would like to assess and then basically advertise the most handicap accessible vote centers for our voters. During the vote center worker feedback session that I had 2 of them, that was a lot of the concern was at the random vote centers, they were handicap accessible, but it just, they still had to walk all the way across the gym for power outlets and things like that. So I think we do the best that we can at the vote center with the power sources and whatnot. but for us to then make it clear to the voters what are the top 3 most handicap accessible vote centers. I just think that's a good public service.
I think that's a great idea. The one place I had heard more than others is LaSalle School, where folks had come in somewhat of a remote entrance and had to make their way
Right.
all the way through to be able to get to the voting location. So I think that kind of thing is good information.
Right, right. I would like to,
Sorry, just to add to that, though, the LaSalle voting location has changed. So there's handicap parking now along the sidewalk there, and then the entrance door will go directly to where they will be voting now. So when they were voting in the hallway there, that was the access to another road, which to your point was true, but we changed the location where we're going to be setting up the equipment. So it worked very well in the primary.
Great. I'm glad to hear it.
Okay. We have been talking about trying to get ahead of everything, just like Diana said, because it's going to be crazy. We are looking at ballot proofing, and we would like to be able to hold a meeting for us to all ballot proof at the same time. Under normal circumstances, the ballots go out for proofing to a lot of people. There has never been a real firm deadline, and we have to get this done, and let's just get this done. But for this election, I really would like to hold an election board meeting where we look at the ballots, and yes, it is lengthy, but at least we'll be all together. We can ask each other questions. We can make sure that it gets done in advance. So I'm just suggesting that. Do you have any feedback on that?
I think we just put it on our agenda for whatever the next meeting is.
I think
as opposed to creating a new meeting.
our next meeting is August 19, and then after that, it's September 11. So does that really fit in?
Nope.
No, I did not think so.
September 11 would be ideal, because by then we should have
The listing.
the list of the ballots, yeah.
Okay, is this going to be a meeting just to go over how that would look if we get together to do it? Because he's going to have to get those and get them
The 12th
done.
is when we need to certify it.
Oh, the day before.
The state's,
Kind of close.
That's a little close.
Because the 19th is the deadline for August 19th is a deadline. Isn't it the 19th for the president?
deadline for IED to certify president, vice president candidates to counties. So the Indiana Election Division has until September 12 to certify those.
September or August?
It says September 12 at noon. Am I
That's just
mistaken?
the certification, but do we have the information before
We
that?
won't have it until they certify it. That would be for the federal candidates to be on the ballot. It's an extremely short deadline. Nick and I know they do this to us all the time. Yeah, I'm not really sure the best approach to it unless they are able to certify it prior to that date. That's the date they're giving themselves.
It might not hurt to ask if they have, well, actually, they may not know. They may not, there may be
Everything gets
pieces
put
missing.
on, everything gets put into the system on their end by when they have it, when they certify it.
Right.
So we won't have that. That report that gets ran gets given to Nick. So until we have the information
Right.
from the state,
Right,
can't really guarantee when the ballots would be ready to proof.
right.
Well, perhaps we can't come up with a date to have that meeting of ballot proofing, but if we can just agree that, and maybe we'll manipulate our election board meeting date so that we can, it would be on one day that we are proofing the ballot, not an extended period of time via email. Have you proofed the ballots? I just think it's much more efficient if we're all together in the same room proofing the ballots. So sort of wrap up, we will just agree that that's how we'll do it. We'll proof the ballots all together, and then we'll wait for Nick to tell us when the first available time is to proof them. Is that correct?
That should work.
Okay, awesome, very good.
Don't forget, we have to have the schools, because the school board, they also have to be part of that process. They have to approve it too, as well as the party chairs. So-
Right, right. Well, I just trying to tighten it up, so it's not kind of like free form out
I
there.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely. Just a few more things. Chris and Tricia and I traveled down for 2 days. We were down at a at a tabletop exercise. It was sponsored by the CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and Secretary of State. We were in person for emergency preparedness for Election Day, different scenarios that they had. It was an excellent, excellent meeting. We had our Emergency Management Agency was at our table, and as well as our IT department was there. Then the three of us, and then a representative from Homeland Security, as well as the election director from the Secretary of State's office. And it was different emergency scenarios and how does everybody fit together. It was fantastic. It was a great, great workshop. Then we traveled the next day down to Gibson County, which is forever into the southern part of the state. But we were able to participate in a post-election audit in Gibson County. We actually got to touch the ballots. Tricia had one role, Chris had another role. So we got to see it happen live because we are going to have a post-election audit done here in St. Joseph County after our general election. So again, we went to a meeting prior to that which had creating best practices for doing an audit. And it was just a fantastic experience for us. We came back with lots of different ideas. The ideas are for efficiency because they expect the VSTOP is the one that does the audit. They expect 3 days of auditing in St. Joseph County because of the number of ballots that we're expecting. So I feel really good about being prepared about that.
A question?
Yes.
To what extent, as that audit is proceeding, to what extent is the election board itself a participant in that, or at least an observer in that process as it goes forward, just from what you saw?
Right. They had, in Gibson County, they only have 33,000 people in Gibson County. They had two of their election board members actually participating in the audit. They had their clerk and then maybe some kind of elections clerk. The media and the public are invited to this process, and they didn't have any media or any public that were there. But it is intended to be transparent and making sure that people can understand the integrity of the election by the randomness of picking the ballots in order to audit. So it cannot happen until after the election is certified. So it would be sometime after November 17. We are guessing it would be the beginning of December that they would come and do that. We've already decided we're going to hold it out at the warehouse just because the sheer number of pairs that we're going to have and the ballots being accessible and things like that. So yeah, we're hoping that it's a good thing, but it's going to be a ton of work. So, but worth it, very well worth it. Was that okay? Is that a good answer?
Yes.
Okay. Our Work the Vote program is going very well for recruiting. We are much more in the marketing and branding type. People are beginning to recognize, oh, that's Work the Vote. We will meet, it is a $40,000 grant from the Elections Assistance Commission, who has commissioners, and we are meeting on August 20th, Bruce Mitchell and Sonia Perez and myself as the Work the Vote personnel, with the commissioner, Donald Palmer, from the EAC, and he wanted to have a Zoom call to see what we're doing and see our marketing materials and see our videos and things like that. So I'm very honored that we get this time with the commissioner from the Elections Assistance Commission. And then my last thing is that the Secretary of State, I remember we had a conversation about credits for attorneys, CLEs. Yes. For attorneys, and I did reach out to the Elections Division, and then I reached out to, or he kicked it up the chain, and Secretary of State is in conversation with the Supreme Court of Indiana about making CLEs available to either vote center workers as election attorneys or as election commissioners. So I think that might be a good idea that came from St. Joseph County, kick it all the way up, and we'll just see what happens, but that would be great. That would be great.
We do get credit for the conference that we attend.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, in December.
Tom and I both applied. It wasn't automatically.
9 hours or something.
It wasn't automatically certified, but Tom and I both applied, and it was both approved.
Oh,
for
excellent,
continuing
excellent.
education credits.
Very great. Okay, that is all I have.
I just want to put on everyone's radar that for the public testing, the 48-hour notice has to be on October 3rd, and the testing has to be done before October 7th. So we need to maybe schedule that as soon as possible, if not today.
Well, we have an election board meeting already scheduled for October 7 at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
So maybe we need to,
Yeah.
massage that a little bit by having the public test a couple days before that? Is that correct?
Before September 7th or
yeah, I have it on October 7th that we're doing the public test.
October 7th?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it has
What's
to be
the
done.
deadline?
October 7th.
Okay.
That's the deadline. I didn't know that we had it set for October 7th.
I mean, we can change it. That's just, that was the initial date that we had it set for,
Okay.
was October 7th. If we need to do it before or the day before, that's fine, but that's where I had it right now, is October 7th.
Well, I would feel better doing it the day before the deadline.
Okay.
And it is a meeting that we
Yeah.
have out at the warehouse, so,
Correct.
so we
This-
could-
October 6th is a Sunday, just so you know.
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Well, then
So
how
we'd have
about
to do
back it
that
up
that
to
Friday, probably, right? Which would be the 4th?
Yeah.
Well, I
Right.
don't have my calendar with me, but, I mean, my preference would be that we then, assuming that time works, that we then move our meeting to that time too, so that we're not in session on Friday and then again on Monday.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know if October 4th works for me now, so I think we're just gonna have to circulate it through email so I can
Okay.
check it. I didn't think we were gonna be scheduling more stuff I didn't
Yeah,
have on my
right.
calendar.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, was that it?
That was
then,
it.
Tricia? Okay, so we'll follow up on the date for the public test.
Any other business? Okay, the floor is open for public comments. Please restrict your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody who wishes to.
Well, good morning. I'm Ben Dallas Maga. I live in Mishawaka. Last month, on July 18th, there was a hearing about my political nickname being put on the ballot, as we all know. I would like to respectfully ask that the board relook at that decision for 2 key reasons. Now, this is something you guys have never had to decide before in the past, so this was new for all of us here. Right? This was a new concept for everybody here. I believe you made the best decision that you could make with what you had in front of you. You heard all sides, and I think you made your decision based on what you knew of the law. However, a couple of things were not talked about. First of all, there was no clear decision on whether a political nickname can or cannot be used during a nonpartisan election. That was not decided because it was ruled that I had 2 nicknames. It was ruled that my abbreviation of my given name was a nickname. So that part needs to be looked at, the abbreviation part, because on the CAN 34 form, that's the form that the candidate puts their information on the ballot. That form clearly distinguishes a difference between an abbreviated given name and a nickname. It's distinguished on the form. So I'm allowed to abbreviate my given first name by just the letter B if I want to, or put a nickname. So I think this logic, this notion that I can't put Ben, but I am allowed to put B as my given name, I don't think that passes the common sense test. I think it's another abbreviation of my given name. And the CAN 34 form clearly distinguishes a difference. An abbreviation of my name is not a nickname. So I think that, and also I think voters and future candidates deserve to know that in future races, can a political nickname be used in a nonpartisan race? I think people deserve to know the answer to that. So I think for those 2 reasons, I'd like to respectfully ask that it get looked at again during, a future board meeting. And whether you reverse the decision or not, I don't care. I just want clarity for the voters and for future candidates. That's the important thing. The second reason I'm here, Clifton French could not be here today. He's out with strep throat. He was going to come by. On July 18th, the meeting on July 18th, it was announced during that hearing that this board would make a decision on Clifton French's challenge to Anthony Rutten's candidacy. You guys said during this meeting you'd make a decision on whether you would forward that to the prosecutor's office or not. That didn't happen. He wants to know why. And that's a valid question, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Good morning. Two short ones. Mike McManus, 51940 Lilac Road. On the contract, and I'm sorry I don't recall what the ultimate decision was, but last primary election, there was some concern about payments to those who were sent home early on certain days because they didn't have anything to do. Is that part of the contract? Is that being considered? Were those people?
He's talking about absentee.
Yeah, you're talking about absentee
Yes.
workers. This is a vote center worker contract for the one day.
Just for the
Yes,
one day.
for the one
Sorry.
day. Sure,
Okay.
no worries.
Thank you. And two, are there any plans to restrict the number of voters inside this building during voting?
Sorry for the question and answer, but we do have a security, we've been working with the security TPG company that mans the county city building lobby and all of that. We've been in discussion with them since before the primary, so there will be a designated place for the voters, and it will not be in the lobby area. They will not be able to snake around in the lobby area like they had been before, but they will be, we have purchased stanchions for outside of the county city building, and we will have stanchions under the covered area as much as possible. But I completely understand that we will have lots of people, and but we do have security protocol in place for that.
I'm concerned that if fewer number of people are allowed in the building and there's inclement weather, that's going to be something that might lower the vote and discourage people from stopping to vote if they have to line up outside. And this is, as Ms. Hess said before, I think this is going to be a bigger turnout than probably I've ever seen since I've lived in South Bend. So I just hope that whatever the number is, I've heard 10, and that seems.
Yeah, I have not heard a specific number of people, but Mike, that's the reason why we're opening the third satellite location over at Center Township Library. Exactly the reason. So the last 2 weeks before the election, we will have three three absentee locations, and that's exactly addressing your concern.
I appreciate that, and that's good to hear. I think this building, though, has a certain prominence for voters.
Mr. McManus, you've exceeded your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon.
Sorry, did I not do the question?
You should not.
I should not, okay.
Question and answers can happen after meeting.
Sorry.
Judy Bradford, League of Women Voters of the South Bend area, 1122 Claremont Drive. On the post-election audit, who determines that's going to be done this year here? Is that the Secretary of State, or did you request it, or how does that work?
If I can speak to you afterwards, I'll do that, okay?
Well, I think at least for this meeting, because you did a Q&A with Mr. McManus, I mean, I think public comment is supposed to be public comment, not a quick Q&A session in general. I think every one of us is willing to stick around after meetings for Q&A sessions if people have questions, but I think in fairness that you've raised some questions that are legitimate questions to be answered. But in the future, I would just ask for people when they're making public comments to make them public comments, not Q&A. And I'm not subtracting away from your time for my commentary. So go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. We volunteered, St. Joseph County volunteered. It is not a requirement. It will soon be a requirement in the next few years from the Secretary of State's office, but for now, it's voluntary.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. We're adjourned.